For the past 235 years, people from oppressed nations around the world have risked life and limb to come here. A chance just to step foot in America and pursue happiness, have life and liberty. To be able to speak their mind, no matter how unpopular their opinion may be. Not have a king or a lord over them. And people flocked to Europe, to China. Who's beating down the door to get to Russia or Iran, Venezuela? Nobody. It didn't happen. Why? Because no matter how much Ruth Bader Ginsburg hates to admit it, America's Constitution is the best in the world. The best framework and the best system on the planet. You come up with a better one, I'd love to hear it. Let's argue it out and let's test it. And if it's better, take the old dusty document out. But right now, there's nothing better than the American Constitution when we honor it and live by it. But progressives have been working so hard to destroy that framework for the past 100 years, and it's almost completely gone. Most of us alive today have not really lived under the constitutional republic as our founders understood it. It's been gone for a long time. They slam it as an outdated charter of negative liberties that doesn't have enough redistributive justice in it. That wasn't the point. The patience and the persistence of progressives, combined, quite honestly, with the laziness and apathy of slugs like me, has allowed us to fall asleep at the wheel. If the founders were alive today, well, A, they'd be really, really old, but they'd be appalled at how indifferent people are to the sorry state of our freedoms. And one that I am increasingly concerned about is the freedom of speech. Look, we came over here to GBTV for a reason. I'm not a stupid man. I know things are changing, and I believe this is the future of television. But it is also the internet, the only place left that is the Wild West. We've created something where they're going to have to come and picket every single member who, if you're a member of GBTV, they're going to have to picket your house too. It won't happen. We have so dishonored the pledge of lives, fortunes, and sacred honor to men who actually stood in a room and wrote those words down and then took a breath before they put their signature down on that paper because they knew it was death. It was a death sentence. When they said, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor, they meant it. And then they counted on us to be wise and just and to repair the standard. And now that standard is on the ropes. Are the wise and the just even around? They better step forward soon, because freedom of speech is even more on the ropes. Let me just give you a couple of the headlines. The president intimidates and lectures the Catholic Church. He actually had the cojones to say, you need to listen to the enlightened voices in our administration. Cardinal Dolan wrote a letter clearly stunned what had just taken place at the White House. That the White House is saying, you don't understand the Catholic doctrine, we do. You got to listen to the enlightened voices. Oh my gosh. A headline writer at ESPN with nothing but glowing marks as an employee gets fired. Offered up by the giant corporation as a sacrifice to the loud, small minority special interest group. We're constantly lectured about diversity and inclusiveness, open-mindedness. But faced with a differing opinion, all of a sudden, that leftist rhetoric turns away from inclusiveness toward silence them. That's the real danger. Washington used to say, meet me on the battlefield of ideas. You can't even say, we're afraid to talk to each other. Because if I say something, you'll have a special interest group over here claiming that I said something entirely different. And vice versa. It's intentionally being done to us. There is a wedge being driven between white and black and Hispanic and Asian. A wedge. It's not who we are. It's who they're making us become. Don't fall for it. Silence them. Let me show you a couple of examples that just happened. A high school basketball team here in Texas, of all places, in San Antonio, has been punished for chanting after one of their games. But listen to this report and how the reporter describes how the school dealt with it. Watch.
This chant happened Friday when Alamo Heights played Edison High School. Once the game wrapped, some students in the stands started chanting USA, USA. Edison is 96% Hispanic, and some at the school and SAISD took offense to the chant. The Alamo Heights superintendent says the students were quickly silenced and will be reprimanded.
Some found it offensive. So the superintendent said the students were quickly silenced. Where do we live? The second piece is a visual, an art piece from Occupy Oakland. They're planning a demonstration against an upcoming visit by Israel's President Shimon Peres. It's Silence Israeli Apartheid. If you see this graphic here, the tank is, of course, Israel, and the horns and the drums, and all they're trying to do is drown out Israel. And that noise won't subside unless you abandon your belief and adopt theirs, and they will continue to shout you down and take away your right to free speech because they insist they're right. You don't believe me what's happening in America? Watch.
You see equality in the Islamic world?
Women's rights! Women's rights! Women's rights!
In other words,
Michael Oren, propagating murder is not an expression of free speech.
Shut up! More criminals!
There's no reason to have an intelligent debate with you because you're not intelligent.
I'm not intelligent. I'm pretty sure I have a master's degree. But okay, let's go and talk about freedom.
I don't know what
let's
the
talk
game
about.
is, but threatening people isn't the way
Let's
you
talk
handle
about freedom.
You're uneducated, unethical, immoral, and you don't know what life is. That's your problem.
You take away the terrorism, and liberals would hate Muslims.
Mike check.
Ross Letton
Is pushing more.
Come on.
You can't make any progress with this. But it's not just on the streets. Whistleblowers are now targeted and served with harsh espionage charges by this administration, something that's not been done. 80 local Tea Parties are now being audited by the federal government despite having small amounts of money in their groups, and Occupy Wall Street is left alone. You're being targeted and you're being told to shut up and sit down. Front groups like Media Matters, and that's all they are. That's a front group. There's nothing real there. They target, they harass. They'll harass you, they'll harass anybody. They'll harass journalists and news corporations. ABC, I've seen it. CNN, Fox, I've seen it. I've lived it. They'll harass any journalist, any host when they don't agree with them, or if they won't fold into their line of thinking, they'll do everything in their power to destroy them. One more example. And it is the reason for tonight's show. Watch. Jada, what have you taken from this experience? What have you learned?
I feel I have so many different feelings from this. First, I feel misunderstood because most grown-ups are making it a racial issue when it's a learning issue. And I also feel hurt because I'm not in school right now and they're taking from me the one thing that I do love. And I feel confused and bound because I thought I lived in a country where they,
Okay?
It's okay. They live in a country of freedom of speech. It's okay. It's okay.
You dare step out of line and go against the teachers' union or public education system. I'm going to tell you the story because they're here tonight. We're going to tell you the story about they send in social workers and the president of the union to intimidate this family. Even a 13-year-old. You're not opening debate. You're putting a target on your back if you dare disobey. That is what this 13-year-old girl found out. She wrote an essay in which she pointed out the oh-so-crazy idea that our public school systems are failing our children. Well, there's a fringe opinion. Good, if that's the fringe, stand there. Public school systems aren't living up to expectations, really? Merely writing these words unleashed a firestorm Jada Williams never thought possible in America today. Now she's in a fight with the machine, the labor unions, the education system, the government, the special interest groups, political correctness, and worst of all, quite honestly, the discovery of true history and what has been taken from her. You see, she was a little upset that she had to learn about Frederick Douglass so late, and nobody was teaching it. Why wasn't he made more important in class? She was as shocked as many of the African Americans in our audience and on my floor crew when we did a week of shows on African American founders back at Fox. I remember looking at Jack and Oscar, and they were pissed at the end of the show. They were angry. They had looked for African American heroes their whole childhood. Oscar told me that his mom used to drive into the city to try to find any book on a hero. She couldn't find it. Why weren't these people held up? It was one of the most shocking shows we ever did in Fox. We expected the gates of hell to open up, but they didn't. It was a surprise. It was eerily silent. You know why? Because the progressive left and the teachers' unions and the special interest groups couldn't say anything because it was all provably true. And more importantly, progressives didn't want to stir anything up, so you would look at it. They didn't want any more attention drawn to what they're failing to teach because they can't have you learn the truth about our own history. Because once you start putting these things in, their game is over. They're supposed to be the inclusive ones. You know why they're so filled with hate and rage if you step out of line? Because the truth destroys them. The truth sets you free. Why are they not teaching about great African Americans who helped found this country? Or Frederick Douglass, or Booker T. Washington. Why? Why is Booker T. Washington damn near erased from history? I'll tell you why. Because he wanted to stop slavery, modern day slavery. He said, what are we doing? What are we doing? We're creating new slaves. Forget about the past. You're free now. Stand up, educate yourself. You can do anything. That's why you don't read about Booker T. Our education system is enslaving African Americans and whites and Asians and everybody else. You tell me, a system that encouraged to give everybody trophies, whether you were a slug or first place, it didn't matter, everybody got a trophy. A system that invented grading on a curve, lower the bar. A system that has failed to teach our children the Constitution, how things work, critical thinking, how to question with boldness even the very existence of God. What utopia lies at the end of Occupy Wall Street? If they get their way, designed by our universities and teachers' unions and paid for by the progressive left, does it end in more freedom or slavery? You tell me. A system that has done all of those things, is that making you more free? That's why they have to go after Jada. They have to take on this 13-year-old girl. The president's not calling a 13-year-old girl to talk to her. They have to use everything they have. She asked in her essay, what will come about of this? Will they even consider my thoughts, my opinions? I'm very curious to see what the turnout will be. Jada knows now. And at this point in her life, at 13, this will make an impact on the rest of her life. She'll either be a part of history, she'll grow up to be a Rosa Parks, because she'll rise above the machine, or she will be swallowed up like so many of our kids who just do simple things like try to sell lemonade on the street and are shut down because they don't have a permit, given a ticket, stopped by the cops, city council comes, shuts them down for lemonade. Why do they do that? Because they have to teach our children young, shut up, sit down, you come to me. You want to do something? You come to me. Don't you dare think you can just go out and do something on your own. That's a lie. That's a lie, America. Don't you let your children believe it. They can do anything. As long as it is based in love and not hate, they can go out and do anything. They can be anything. I used to tell my son, I used to kiss him at good night, and I used to say, "Good night, Mr. President. Sleep well." I don't want my son to grow up to be president. I've never felt that way in my entire life. Tonight, you're going to meet some amazing people. I asked some amazing people that I really respect to come here and teach this young girl. Put her up on our shoulders and hold her up for the world to see, and show her that there are more Americans rooting for her than she could possibly ever know. Try to cement her feet on the path of Frederick Douglass, the path of righteousness.